Museum Aargau Depot.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to a new video brought to you by the Spadone project. Here is Nick and Julian. Today we are in Museum Aargau in Switzerland, specifically the Museum Depot, and we bring you an interesting new piece. This time is not a 200 sword, but rather a so-called long sword. Of course, before delve into the description, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel to help us. And if you want, you can even subscribe to our Patreon page, just some euros a month. You find the link in the description. So let's discuss this piece if you want to take it up. First thing, dating. This is not medieval longsword. Dating is beginning of the 16th century, right?
Yes. 1510 is one of the datings.
Okay. The first thing that we noticed, and probably you did, is the gilding on the hilt. We already have a video you can check in the description about gilding of another sword of this collection, so we suggest you watch it to have more information about it. Just to be really quick about it, maybe the gilding is not original, was added in a second time, and what I would add to this hypothesis is that if we look at some of the characteristics, especially of the blade, I wouldn't say this is a really rich or incredibly elaborated craftsmanship piece. And so we found pretty weird to have at least gilding on the ricasso here. And for what concern the origin, so geographic area, we were discussing it, and you were pointing out, Julian, you think is Italian, right?
I had a more Italian feel, but if you look at the provenance and history of the sword, there are some things that are not problematic, but also can explain some mixture of styles. Legendarily, this was attributed to the leader of the armies in the Burgundian Wars, Hans von Hallwyl. The castle of Hallwyl is in Aargau. He won the Battle of Murten. This is not a sword of his time.
Yep.
That would be 1470s. And this is clearly first quarter of the 16th century. I agree, it's fairly simple, but gilded. So we know, though, that the sword was later used as a judiciary sword, not for beheading anybody or something, but as a symbol of justice.
Yeah, it might resemble the look of a beheading sword, but actually is not. Even the tip is a bit rounded, but beheading swords are way more rounded than this, and maybe I would say a bit even larger in width.
Yes, but there's of course a difference between an executioner sword and a representative justice sword. So this is not for that, but in court, when you stand this as a symbol of the power of the justice is being shown, and we know that has been the case for the city of Aargau with this sword. So maybe at some point when they said, oh, we take this as our sword, let's make it a bit nicer.
Yes.
Maybe they then added actually the ferules.
That ferules, we repeat, we discussed them in other videos as well. They tend to be present on Italian blades.
They are also, we see some gilding there, and we have rests of some fabric. It looks like velvet. So probably this was covered in velvet.
Yes.
And I want to go back to you pointing out it looks fairly simple, and that's true. And even for the pommel, where there would be a lot of space for having nice decoration if it was gilded, it fits to the finials.
The crossguard. Yes, there's this cross element.
Absolutely. You have the same file marks basically repeated here. So this is consistent, but maybe really they thought we needed a bit nicer because these you can add later. So maybe they didn't have that in the beginning. We also see the bracing where these were connected. So maybe they took the sword, gilded it, put the everything else. And then it wouldn't be necessarily Italian, or it was Italian.
I would point out that in this case we do not have an ecusson, so the like of prolonging spike protruding from this part, the middle of the crossguard. So it's a pretty common Italian features. Maybe that point out to an early period that is matching actually the dating, while we find longer ecusons in swords. For example, I'm thinking about the Doge's Palace in Venice, 200 sword, but they are probably closer to the middle of the century, so there are some decades in between.
Otherwise, we see that often in Switzerland.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing that might point, at least for the blade, to a German production is the mark. We have talked slightly about it in another video, and is the unfamous to us crowned letter P. And we know different kind of letter P marks on blades. Some of the latest are considered German. Sometimes they are paired with the symbol of hunting horn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's usually a pair of crown P, and in between there's this horn. In this case, we just have the crown P on both sides. And if it's not a matter of the damage, like the polishing of the blade, I would say this is one of the different kinds, is not exactly that we usually point out as to the second half of the century. So,
but also we think it's a bit more widespread. So it's not a single maker that uses it. We have other areas, and that's why also the Italian or Northern Italy origin is not totally.
Yes, is more nuanced as a topic.
Could be, could not be. We know we have Styrian makers even that have this mark documented. It could be anything at that point. But some years ago, if you see that mark, everybody would say it's Italian, and that we don't think is true anymore. So at least that is.
Yes, absolutely.
But just the overall feeling with the gilding and from paintings, and especially how decorated the ferules were, that gave a tiny bit impression it could be like an Italian type of weapon. But the more we talk about it, the more I go away from that feeling.
Okay, some stats maybe?
Yes, you measured it.
So we find it pretty short in comparison to what we usually measure. It's just 1 meter point 28, so it's even shorter than your usual HEMA feather. But weight-wise, we are around 1 kilo point 81, so pretty heavy for the length, at least in comparison to what we are used to see in fencing club nowadays. And point of balance is 9 centimeters from the crossguard. That is consistent with other weapon we have seen so far. Anything else to point out?
A slight fuller.
Yes.
Here is the remnants of another mark. I think it's a sun. From this perspective,
possible.
You see the nose and the
or
mouth.
might be
Could be not. Yeah.
Might be maybe nicks for inlays. I've seen some other marks that perpendicularly to the main sign of the symbol, they have these nicks to lay down better the matter for the inlay. And cross section is lenticular.
Yes.
In this case.
Yes.
So meant for cutting.
Yes. Overall, it has a nice feel for me. Bit heavy side, but okay.
Good for cutting.
Good for cutting.
That's it. Okay, so again, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel to follow us and do not lose any of our videos. You can subscribe if you want to our Patreon page, just some euros per month. you get updates about our research, and you let us buy more gear, books, going on with the research, of course, traveling more and visiting more museums and collections. So thank you for watching, and see you with the next video. That's it. Bye-bye.
Bye.